In today's video, we're going to be talking about low ball offers. We're going to be talking about the advantages to making a low ball offer, but also the disadvantages to doing it. So we're going to talk through that because I hear it constantly all week long. A buyer or a seller, the seller doesn't want to be on the receiving end of the low ball offer. The buyer wants to throw the low ball offer. And then we also have the real estate agents that are all over Facebook saying, don't bring me your low ball offers. So we're going to talk through that. We're going to rebrand this whole low ball thing. All right, first of all, if this is the first time that you're clicking on this channel, I am so glad you're here. Channel is called Connect to Florida, and here on this channel, we talk about the non-brochure living in Florida. We make the assumption that you know all the good things about Florida. So here on this channel, I try to balance things out a little bit so that you have the good and the bad, because that is life. There is nothing and nowhere out there that's all good with absolutely no bad. That doesn't exist. So this is a non-brochure living channel. I've been a real estate broker for 27 years, so I do my very best to educate you on the area so that you can make a good buying or selling decision along the way. So let's jump into, first of all, what is defined as a lowball offer? How do we define that? You know what? It is absolutely subjective. My opinion of a lowball and your opinion of a lowball could be two very different things, and also, most importantly, depending on who's pitching and who's catching. You know what I mean? That will define what's a lowball. So the way that I look at it is, if I can establish that I personally have listed a home for $500,000 and I've run the comps, I've run them accurately, I've taken the good with the bad on the comparables, and I know to the best of my ability that this home should sell for $485,000, market conditions considered, scarcity of product considered or not, $485,000 is the number we should be looking at. We get it out on the market, it's in above average condition, and then somebody shows up and they offer $385,000. Is that a low ball? Yeah, that's a pretty low offer. The reason it's a low offer is because it's significantly, substantially below what is probably fair market value, and this is the important part, we can establish that. So here's my thing with this. If in this same scenario, a buyer's agent gives me that same offer, am I going to get offended? No. Am I going to let my seller get offended? No, I am not. You know why? Because we don't know the motivation of that buyer. We don't know if that buyer is just somebody who's testing the waters, but they would go much, much higher. We don't know that. And it doesn't matter what the buyer's agent is saying. It doesn't matter if the buyer's agent is saying,
well, this might be your only offer, and you let us go, you're never going to see another offer.
We don't care about that. This is their top offer. Absolute top. We're not giving you a dime, but if you want to let them go, that's on you. So we don't care about any of that. We're going to counter. We're going to counter what your Mr. and Mrs. Seller number is in mind. We're going to make that counter because at that point, it's in the buyer's court. If the buyer then wants to come back with another counter and we can kind of volley back and forth and get there, then you know what? Everybody wins. If the buyer gets offended now that they have thrown a lowball offer, and so we come back with an offer that's well above what they gave us, and now they get offended and they walk away, you know what? Maybe we'll see you in 3 weeks when you don't find something that faces west with a water view and a golf course view and light, bright, and open, and maybe you can't find this again. Maybe we'll see you in a few weeks. So sometimes throwing that lowball offer will shake out a good deal. It will shake out motivation. You know what else I've seen it do very, very often? When you're sitting down with a seller and you've got that offer that's $100,000 lower than what their list price is, and you sit down and you talk through it, and you don't let them knee jerk and get offended, and you don't let them just kind of get mad and shut down negotiations. If you really talk through it, you will find that there's a little softness there with them that will work for them. We never want to talk a seller into selling lower than what they want. So let's take this from a buyer's agent's perspective. Maybe you're the agent that is a little bit hesitant to write those offers that are very low. And there's a lot of agents out there that'll just adamantly refuse to write them. This is the way that I look at it. When you put it out there presented the right way, are there going to be some people that just get absolutely offended and emotional and everything shut down and you don't get any further than that offer? Yeah, it can happen. But you know what? Equally as many people that do that will go ahead and come to the table and start negotiating. And a lot of times it'll shake out a good deal for all parties. I can't tell you how many times I've been able to negotiate terms. What do I mean by that? What I mean is, let's say we wrote that, let's just use that same house for an example, and let's just to make numbers easy. Let's say it's listed at $500,000. We write the offer at $450,000. The seller, it's not quite working for the seller, but we find out in communicating, everybody open communication, not getting offended and emotional, we find out that the hesitation by the seller is that they haven't found anywhere to live yet. So we give them terms. We let them stay 3 months free of charge. We do something to make their life easier and everything comes together. I have negotiated occupancy post-closing at no charge many times. Now listen, you don't want to go out doing that on your own. If you're thinking about buying something without an agent, do not attempt that one on your own, because anytime we do a post-closing occupancy, we make sure that that's legally sound for all parties. So if you're thinking about something for sale by owner, don't do that. Make sure you're working with a good agent. But that said, sometimes there's terms that a buyer or a seller will like, and you may not know about that if you didn't go ahead and make that offer in the first place. If you're a seller on the market right now, you need to understand that we're in a buyer's market. If you've brought your home to market and it is Joe average house, it's in Cape Coral, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, it backs to another house, and you don't have a pool, you need to understand you're not getting top dollar for that house. We're not in that market anymore. Your time to have sold would have been during COVID. So you have to really realize that everything is not bidding way up. That's just the truth, and we are definitely in a buyer's market. Now, here's another thing you need to consider, and this is happening constantly right now in this market that we're experiencing. Let's say you're a seller and you look out. You find that needle in a haystack buyer that will pay over all the comparables in your neighborhood. It is easily established that your home should sell for $800,000, but you lucked out and you found that buyer whose grandma's auntie lives 3 doors down and they want your house. They're funded to do it. They have a loan in place. They're putting 30% down and they want your house. So we write the deal. It all comes together. Here's the problem. They're bringing a loan. What does that mean? They have to have an appraisal. A lot of these properties are not appraising. Right now, it's very, very hit and miss. If the appraiser can't easily establish that your home is worth X, they're bringing the appraisals in low. What happens when an appraisal comes in low? Well, one, the deal can die. Will you get your earnest money back? Yes, as long as it's accounted for in the contract. So again, you've got to work with a good agent to protect your earnest money. So that's one thing that could happen. Second thing that could happen is the buyer just says, okay, well, I don't care. I'll go ahead and fund the shortfall. It came in $80,000 off numbers. I will go dollar for dollar cash out of pocket for $80,000. That can happen. Does it happen often? No. Have I seen it happen from time to time? Yeah, I have, depending on the market. We're in a buyer's market. I wouldn't suggest it, but a buyer can do that if they want to, or the seller can agree to adjust the price down to the number that it was appraised for. Again, does it happen sometimes? Is it often? No. Or the buyer and seller can renegotiate the number and it works for everybody. So these are the things that happen when you overprice. Somebody's bringing a loan and it comes in low. So you might say, well, how do I stop that from happening? You can say cash only. We were doing it all the time during COVID. We would say cash only. And you might find that surprising, but people would show up with the cash. Or if you feel like your loan is strong enough, you can remove your mortgage contingency, but then you have to come up with that shortfall money. So would I suggest to anyone that they do that? Absolutely not. But these are the things you could do if you wanted to. So the bottom line is that the best time for lowball offers is when you are in a buyer's market, which we are, when there's an abundance of property on the market, which there is. If you're buying a condo, come on. Absolutely write a low offer, in my opinion, unless, again, you've got needs that are very shaken out, that are very specific. And I would say that same thing on a house. If you're very picky about what you want, then you know what? You could still write the lowball offer, but just know you're probably not going to get the property for in that range you're looking for. But as I always say, if you have very specific needs, that your needs are very filtered out and shaken down, I always say work to a 90% solution. If you find it, your very picky needs, you find that thing you're looking for and you still feel like you want to write the lowball, go ahead and do it. But just know that if that seller doesn't take your offer, and that is one of the few and far between houses that you actually like, then you have to acknowledge that, you know what, there's an overriding motivation for you to buy that home because you have enjoyment. You're going to live there. So that is something you really have to consider. You're going to use the house and live in it. And if you find one that you're like, you know what, if I don't get this one, I'm going to feel a sense of loss. Maybe that's a different scenario. But I would say as a whole right now, especially in the condo market, and especially in areas like Naples, where there are a lot of homes on the market, if you are targeting Joe average home, 3-bedroom, 2-bath with a pool, to me, there's not a whole lot of reason not to test the water.